It's a sight frequently seen in Waco, on a corner or a parking lot, someone asking for money, a group off by themselves in a vacant lot, another sleeping on a park bench with nowhere to call home. Homelessness can be classified into a couple of categories. Situational or temporary homelessness is caused by losing a job, an illness or serious injury, or perhaps a divorce. These individuals can often recover if intervention is quick. Episodic homeless stand the biggest chance for becoming chronically homeless without treatment. This group is young relative to the chronically homeless group. Chronic homelessness is often associated with substance abuse and or a serious mental or physical illness.
I've been in Waco since Thanksgiving, the end of Thanksgiving of 2005. I've been homeless that whole time till now of June, July of 2007. And what caused me to know that I was sick wasn't necessarily still being on the bench. It was after I arrived at the hospital, and the doctors had lured me along with them and showed me, within their eyes, why they considered there's something wrong with me and why I'm sick. And that woke me up, that I needed medicine and I needed to be cared for, and I needed some help even though I'm homeless, and I need to be somewhere indoors to be taking my medications or something. It needs to happen. This is what they're explaining to me. But they did something scientific and something that they can do to where they you know how they break down words from higher words that are higher up from graduate school down to high school. That's kind of what they did. So they broke it down to me, and they came into they brought me into the area of schizophrenia and what it is that I was suffering from. And I told them, I had to testify to them, that's something I'm already suffering from. It's my understanding from the military, and my understanding that's what they brought me in for. And that's, once they got to the end of it, that's exactly what it was.
While those classified as chronically homeless represent only 15% of the homeless population, they utilize half of the resources designated to address all homelessness in our community. Each year, the cost to our community for each chronically homeless individual is estimated at $39,000. Because of direct costs to our public systems for hospitals, law enforcement, jails, fire department, and prisons, the total cost of homelessness to our community is estimated at more than $7.6 million.
We have found through a housing study done by students at Baylor University that to take care of our chronic homeless who are roaming the streets and going through shelters, the jail systems, emergency rooms, using up our social services. What happens with a chronically homeless person is they'll rotate through our system. They'll be on the streets some nights sleeping, some nights they'll be in our shelters, which costs money. The community funds the shelters. They also end up going in an emergency room for their medical needs. They go to the emergency room. Well, the emergency room is very expensive, and they typically will stay longer than a typical person. They may be there for possibly maybe 1 or 2 days, where another person may be in and out the same day. They also end up being picked up by the police often for different reasons, and in which they go into our jail system. And as many of us know, the jail system is rather expensive and it's overcrowded. So we're tying up resources, police, jail, emergency room, our own communities, shelters, and then they use our social services, which we provide them day center where they can, have a place to go during the day and get their laundry done, etc. And then all the other services such as maybe mental health or chemical dependency services. So there's just a lot of services that are being used up by a few needy individuals, and we feel with permanent supportive housing, a stable place to live, that we can cut those costs dramatically and yet take care of their needs.
Homelessness also raises significant health issues in our community. Infectious diseases are a particular concern.
There are two different ways it impacts health. First are the implications for public health, and then second are the access or the lack of access to health care for the homeless population specifically. We can see problems with communicable diseases, particularly tuberculosis. The homeless population, some people quote that it's tuberculosis is up to 20 times more prevalent, or can be, in the homeless population. And so that affects, the whole community, since we don't want any population to have tuberculosis, but the more people you have in an area with TB, the more likely that other people are going to get it. And the same with some other communicable diseases. They also don't have, a lot of times don't have access to things that are necessary for good hygiene, which, promotes health. So we see a lot of dental problems in the homeless population, which can also have a negative impact on the rest of their health as well. If they, get infections in their gums or things like that, it can be detrimental to the rest of their health.
Chronic homelessness is a complex issue with several misconceptions, such as being lazy or content to live on the streets.
I know that a lot of people have an idea that homeless people are maybe lazy or uneducated, and I can see where that might fall into play sometimes, but from my experience, whenever I first got here, the job searches, it was in the middle of the summer. I walked on foot all over, sometimes all the way down to the river and back, some down to I-35 and back, day in and day out, and I never will forget this day. I was so hot over there by Jesse's Tortilla Factory under a big shade tree. I had my backpack and I put it down. And I laid down in the grass with my head on the backpack to get some relief from the heat. And it had been like 5 or 6 weeks with no break for a job. And, the court costs were piling up, and I knew that, the judge might take action on me and send me to prison. And, my children needed their child support, and their father might not be so lenient, with my needs because of my, foolish actions just months before that. But anyhow, I laid down under that shade tree, and my breath was hot, and everything was hot, and the ants were biting me. I just didn't care. I just needed to lay there. And I felt utterly worthless, like a scumbag, just because, I was walking around, there was people driving by in their comfortable cars and, air conditioned, and they had lives, they had, things going on, and I ruined it for myself, and I saw no way out. And that night, I had a meeting at the Freeman Center. No, it was that day. I knew I had to get to the Freeman Center all the way across town. I didn't know how I was going to keep going. I had blisters on my feet, but I made it. And whenever my counselor asked me how I was doing, I broke in there and I wept. And she asked me, basically I just told her the same thing that I just shared here, and told her, she asked a few questions about depression and suicide, and I met all the criteria for that. And what made her afraid is, because I'd started planning, maybe jumping in front of a car or whatever. So she emailed my probation officer, and my probation officer in Mission Waco got me help like that day. He came up here that day, met with them, and I've received so much counseling since then, so much support. I can't believe I even allowed myself to grieve like that last year. But I think the grief is what motivated me to keep going.
The homeless face many challenges that prevent them from rejoining society.
When I was working at Mrs. Baird's, they had what they call rotating shifts. Normally, if most jobs, if it's a rotating shift, it's usually like weekly. At Mrs. Baird's, it's daily. You might go into work one day at 12 noon. The next day, you might go into work at 6 in the evening. One night, you might go into work 11 o'clock at night. So when you get off work, after being in a hot building where they're baking bread 24 hours a day, you have nowhere to go and rest before you go back to your next shift. So, you go to work, you can't see the burns, but I've burned myself because I was sleepy. And I'm sitting here by an oven that's about 600 or 700 degrees or whatever, and you put your arm on it, you're going to get burned. But you didn't have anywhere to go and rest. other than at the library. And that wasn't really good rest because you're sitting up sleep. You can't really rest. So you really didn't, it's not conducive to trying to work. Because like at the Mine Center, they're only open during the day. So if you're working during the day, you don't have time to do laundry. And over at the Salvation Army, where I'm working at now, technically we're not supposed to do laundry for the people, but we do. We're not geared for it. Because all we have is one little regular washer and a dryer. And I've washed, the guys' clothes for them when they come in or whatnot. And I know they're working. I make an extra effort to wash it. But on a daily basis, you don't have anywhere to wash. And most people on the streets don't have vehicles. So you can't go to the washing. The buses, they only run so many hours. They run some weird hours, which I never figured out. But they stop running 7 or 8 o'clock at night. And if you're working, you're just getting off at 5. You catch, the bus to the washing. By the time you get to washing, what you going to do? You're going to walk with a big old bag. First thing you know, here come the police. Where you going with this bag? And you're just coming from washing your clothes. But they think you've been out stealing.
The longer someone is homeless, the more difficult it becomes to break the cycle. In 2005, Waco Mayor Dr. May Jackson initiated a 10-year plan which included a study that provided valuable insights to the challenges the community faces due to the increase of the chronic homeless population. This was necessary to seek additional federal funding. Mayor Virginia Dupuy continued to champion this effort during her term as mayor. The City of Waco and several community partners have developed strategies and continue to implement programs aimed at ending chronic homelessness by providing support services, as well as adequate, affordable housing.
Thank you for all the gifts you give us. We ask that you forgive us of our sins. In your name I pray, amen.
Amen.
These programs are targeted at individuals who often fall through the cracks of traditional programs, yet need assistance to get them off the streets into a safe, healthy environment. One program that's been successful is the development of permanent supportive housing. This program offers rental housing, around-the-clock support services such as educational and job training programs, and substance abuse support groups.
I believe at least 75% of the homeless people, if given just some place to set up a base camp, okay, someplace stationary. I'm telling you, these streets are very dangerous out here, okay? I've been assaulted about 8 times and battered a couple. It's not safe in these streets because of drugs, number one, and just some sorry people.
I'm having a horrible time finding a place like to transition to. All of the applications to the apartments, I try to get all bills paid. They all say on the application that you need to make at least 3 times the amount of the rent, which I fall just a little bit short of that, and I'm intimidated by that anyhow. But I'm having a hard time trying to figure out how to budget this and budget transportation, which I'm pretty sure I would just take the bus, $30 a month. But the financial, I'm just afraid I'll fall into another state of financial crisis.
In some communities, permanent supportive housing has had an 80% success rate by reducing costs for police, fire, and hospitals, saving thousands or millions of dollars each year.
Well, of course, permanent supportive housing, if we were to do it, we would make sure it's debt-free going in. We would get the proper grants and donations to do it debt-free. And then as far as taking care of the homeless from then on, it would probably run maybe $300 to $500 per person to put them in a nice rental situation. Again, a lot of our stuff would be grants and foundation type support. But once you get them in there, it's not that expensive, and it's definitely a lot cheaper than $39,000 a year.
I think that permanent supportive housing would be just improve healthcare access for the homeless population just tremendously, because they're going to be in a stable environment. For one, they have access to soap and water and a place to brush their teeth and those kinds of things. So just very basic issues of hygiene, which promote good health, that's improved. They have a safe place to sleep, which is important to health, so that's improved. And then they also have a place where they can receive phone calls and mail and things of that nature from the doctor to remind them to come in for appointments and things of that nature. It's really difficult to schedule appointments with doctors or dentists or those kinds of things, and then, you know, I think it's just easy to lose track of time when you're on the streets and, you know, you don't have your calendar that you're looking at every day. So I think that when you're in a stable housing environment, then it stabilizes the rest of your life as well, and it makes it easier for you to receive all kinds of services, and health services in particular.
As Waco continues to address chronic homelessness, it'll free up resources to assist those facing situational or episodic homelessness who only need minimal assistance to restore their lives.
It's a catch-22, because I don't have a record, so I'm lucky in that sense. But a lot of guys I know that have felonies or whatever, as soon as they see that, no, you can't stay here. And I'm like, why? To me, I'm just being realistic. Okay, he has a felony. Evidently, he did his time. Aren't you supposed to let the man back in society? But how are you going to do that if you don't let him move into affordable housing? Just because he has a felony. I mean, I don't know what he did. You know, I don't know if that's a criteria. I don't even think they care about what the felony was for. It's just felony. Well, you can't live here. So you can't even move into a place that you might be able to afford, and it might be in the part of town where it keeps you away from making another felony. It's like they're throwing you right back into the fishbowl that you just got out of.
Permanent supportive housing is a cost-effective option that's good for the entire community. If we took 80% of the folks that we have on our streets now, you can imagine what a difference it would make. Not only for those people who, whether you're concerned about people panhandling in front of your business, whether you're concerned for the people who are on the street, your compassion for them, it makes no difference. When you have a place that's safe and a place where you can call your own, you can begin to heal. Sometimes it's as simple as just a roof. People who have substance abuse issues, too many times they're put back out into the same group of people whenever they come out of transition programs. It's just not long enough. Transition programs work for a lot of people, but not everyone. Permanent supportive housing is a resource that these folks need to be able to mainstream back into regular society, and it has an 80% success rate.
The reality is chronic homelessness isn't going to end until our community works together to find solutions for those in great need. Harry Truman said it best, a society will be judged by how it treats its weakest members.
There is hope for me. There is recovery for me. And who knows, I might be able to help another vet along the way.